말씀의 제목을
The title of today's message, I've set it as God who seeks us out in our lack. He remembers our shortcomings, our weaknesses. So when I'm truly struggling, God watches over me, and He firmly holds my hand. I pray that you believe in that power of God. In the nation of Israel, there are truly great heroes of faith. Without hesitation, we always name David. And another hero of Israel, no less than David, we name Moses. Moses and David, in a way, they are like two pillars, revered heroes of Israel. However, neither Moses nor David were born into lives of abundant grace and blessings from God. Moses, just a few days after his birth, was placed in a cradle with no way to see what lay ahead and had to be sent down the Nile River in Egypt. Why? Because the Israelites were flourishing too much. Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, ordered that all male babies born to the Israelites be killed. So, Moses was a person destined to die right after his birth. But God watched over him and protected him, and then raised him up as a national leader to deliver Israel, who had lived as slaves in Egypt for over 500 years, 530 years, to be exact. David, as the youngest son of Jesse, suffered greatly for about 20 years just to stay alive. He lived the life of a fugitive, unable to sleep in one place for more than 2 nights, and then became the king of the tribe of Judah, and eventually the king of all 12 tribes of Israel. In other words, if we compare it to our own history, like King Taeo Wangjian of the Goryeo dynasty, or Taeo Yi Seong-gai who founded the Joseon dynasty, though he was the second king, he was virtually established as a founding king who built a strong dynasty for Israel. Today, we'll talk about Moses. Until Moses received God's call, there were truly many stories. He was abandoned in the Nile River at 3 months old. Placed in a basket of reeds in the Nile River, the infant was miraculously carried downstream and discovered by the princess of Pharaoh's palace, and miraculously preserved his life as the princess's adopted son. And then, through twists and turns, he spent 40 years in Pharaoh's palace, and then went into the desert, spending 40 years in the great wilderness. After 80 years, he was used as a central figure in history. My dear friends, with our worldly eyes, we cannot see God's chosen vessels who are still being raised up today. There are some among us. There are some among your children. I bless you to be saints who raise up such vessels. Pray fervently for many such individuals to emerge. Of course, prayers for money, fame, and status are necessary. However, a prayer more important than these is for God to send us righteous individuals. We need prayers asking God to give us individuals who fear Him. We are experiencing these days how great a blessing it is to have good leaders. There's no separate hell, is there? This is hell. The entire nation is trembling in anxiety. A situation where we can't feel safe and focus on our livelihoods is simply not being created. How painful is that? Seeing such things, we should pray endlessly for God to send us such excellent leaders. Seeing Moses, who was abandoned in the Nile River and nearly disappeared without any hope, being greatly used, what do we think? Despair is forbidden. No matter what situation arises, despair is forbidden. No matter how desperate my situation or circumstances may be now, I must never lose heart. My end is God's beginning. It's not over until God declares it's over. Even if my siblings, friends, neighbors, and many people around me forget me and abandon me, I bless you to always remember that God is capable of helping me overcome all my pain and hurt. The important thing is that I must know for certain who my God is. You must know for certain. Today's passage describes the scene where God specifically gives Moses the mission of the Exodus. This is what God says to Moses. Through this passage today, we can clearly understand what kind of God He is. As we examine a few things today, I pray that you all clearly grasp who our God is and have courage and hope. What kind of God is He? First, He is a God who always watches over me like the apple of His eye. Let's repeat after me. God who watches over me. Do you believe that? God is watching over me even now. Look at verse 16. If you only look at the very end, it says, I have surely seen what has been done to you in Egypt. He is watching. God is watching over me even now. God was watching all the suffering of the Israelites. When they were enslaved for 430 years, some impatient people might have thought that God had forgotten their nation, but all that time, God was watching. Likewise, I pray that you believe that our God is watching all of my things even now. If God is watching over me, wouldn't I be even more serious? If someone is watching over me and someone is cheering me on, it gives me strength. My dear friends, don't think that no one is paying attention to you. Believe that someone is watching over you and cheering you on, and that from above in heaven, He is seeing all of your actions, every single thing you do. In Job chapter 31 verse 4, it says, Does not He see my ways and count all my steps? This is Job's confession. Who is He? It refers to God. My dear friends, can you mentally know how many steps you walk today? With a pedometer, after living a full day, you'll know how many steps you walk today, right? I don't know how many steps I walked today, but our God knows how many steps I walked better than I do. Can you count the hairs on your head? You can't, can you? God is a God who counts even the number of hairs on my head. What kind of work is this God doing for me? Though we may not fully know it, what is certain is that all things that happen in my life work together for my good in the end. We must remember this. So, how should we live? No matter how difficult the reality, there's no need to worry too much. If I look at myself and my problems, I'll worry, of course. But if I look to God who works for me and causes all things to work together for good, my heart becomes peaceful. Always remembering this fact that God always watches over me and protects me, I bless you to live bravely, never losing hope in any circumstance. What is the most frequently appearing word in the main passage we read today? In our early morning Bible study, we always pay attention to that when we go through the passage. What is the most frequently appearing word? How did you know? The answer came from the choir. It's the word, I. I. The most frequently appearing expression in today's passage is the expression, I. Here, who does I refer to? God. God is speaking to Moses, and He says, I know. I will do this. He says, I, the most. Look at verse 17. I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt to the land of the Canaanites. I. Now, look at verse 19. I know that the king of Egypt will not let you go. Then verse 20, I will stretch out my hand and strike Egypt with all my wonders, and after that, He will let you go. Verse 21, I will grant this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Who will do it? God will do it. What is the meaning these expressions are trying to convey? That God is the one who governs our history. That is the meaning. God is the owner of our history. God leads this history. So, What is the ultimate, the most important requirement for victory in our lives? For my life to be a victorious life, the first requirement of life is that God dwells within me, that God becomes my sovereign. I should not be the owner of my life. God must be my owner. God must dwell within me. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him and eat with him, and he with me. I must receive God so that God may govern my thoughts, my words, and my life. To dwell completely in God, this is the secret to a victorious life. If God is not with you, your business won't work. Your family will crumble. Your life will crumble. Are things not going well? Seek God. Are you feeling uneasy? Are things tangled and not working out? Think about who has been living your life until now. Am I the owner of my life? When you plan something, when you start something, examine how much you prayed and asked for God's help. If things aren't working out, look back at yourselves and seek God. God will be your helper. What if things are going well? If things are going well, seek God even more. You must seek Him even more, because that's when Satan attacks. Satan and demons don't care about those who are already in their grasp. Who are the people in their grasp? Those who aren't interested in changing themselves, who don't believe in the Lord, and just live life as it comes. Satan has no interest in them because they're already in his grasp. Then who does he tempt? Satan tries to bring down those who diligently dedicate themselves, believe in the Lord, and live by prayer and the Word. From my perspective, what is the greatest weapon of Satan's attack? I believe it's temptation. When we, as saints, experience tribulation, there is only physical suffering. But temptation devours our souls. No one in this world can be perfect against temptation. Even if I live a holy life today, I cannot guarantee tomorrow. Therefore, everyone needs God's help every single day to live. Without God's help, I can fall at any time. Believe that God, who governs history, also governs the lives of individuals, and leads every soul who fully trusts in Him to the best path. Look at verses 21 and 22 of the passage. Again, it starts with, I will grant this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. And when you go, let's read it together. You shall not go empty-handed, but every woman shall ask of her neighbor, and of her who dwells in her house, articles of silver and gold, and clothing, and you shall put them on your sons and daughters. So you shall plunder the Egyptians. Those who know the history of the Exodus and have studied the Exodus will understand this. The people who came out of Egypt wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. But they lived in a place where they couldn't acquire gold and silver ornaments anywhere in the wilderness. However, God told Moses to build the tabernacle. Do you know how much gold, silver, and precious stones went into that tabernacle? Enormous amounts of valuable jewels went into it. The Israelites brought those out in abundance, even as they were hastily driven out of Egypt. This is rooted in today's passage. God had a temporary purpose in allowing the Israelites to live as slaves. But God's ultimate purpose is to make His people prosperous. Please remember this word. God's thoughts concerning me are, what did He say? Peace, not calamity. This is a verse from Jeremiah 29. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. God wants us to live abundantly. Look at Deuteronomy chapter 28, starting from verse 1. God promised us immense blessings. Your kneading bowls will overflow. Your children will prosper. Your livestock will multiply many times over. He wrote down such blessings in abundance. If we truly fear and worship God with all our hearts, God will make us prosperous. Our God is a fair God. If you do not retreat in faith, believe that God will surely fill up all that you have lost until now. There is a pattern in God's work of using people in history. What is it? It is that he first seeks out the weak. He first seeks out the lacking. Then he gives them abundant grace, and ultimately uses them as proclaimers who proclaim the abundant God. In 1 Corinthians chapter 1 verse 27 and following, it says that God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. God chose the lowly, the despised, and the things that are not, to nullify the things that are. My dear friends, when you look at yourself, does it seem like there's nothing filled? Does everything seem to be lacking? When you are lacking, God seeks you out. The problem is that I must look to God. I must pray towards God. People often think that God appears in very grand places, but that's not true. When God appeared to Moses, where did he appear? He appeared in the burning bush in the desert. There, he called out, "Moses, Moses, do you know how worthless a thorn bush is? The most useless tree is a thorn bush. Even fully grown, it only reaches a person's height. And it's not even good for firewood. It's a useless tree for anything. In such a thorn bush, in an unconsumed fire, he appeared and called Moses. And when Moses drew near, he said, 'The place where you are standing is holy ground. Take off your sandals from your feet.' And he set Moses as a leader. Where do people seek? They seek places with splendid interiors, but God does not seek such places. God seeks people like a thorn bush, and churches like a thorn bush. He seeks such people more. God seeks those who feel that they are lacking and worthless, and who humbly seek God's grace. When you look at people's lives, there's a common phenomenon. In the initial pioneering stage of starting something, they earnestly seek God. Then, when things become a bit more filled, they say, "God, you can rest now. I'll do it now," and they lose prayer. And from then on, they start to become the main character. When prayer becomes a form and worship becomes a form, God does not listen to my worship. He's not very interested in my prayers. God seeks those who confess that there is no way or method apart from God, and who cling to Him. When we pastors go to denominational general assemblies, all the pastors from across the country gather. Pastors who do well in ministry and lead large churches will gain attention and popularity. Pastors who faithfully serve in small churches don't receive much attention. People are attracted by human ability, appearance, and popularity. But God doesn't care about such things at all. God seeks those who long for God's grace, who lay their shortcomings before God, and seek grace, saying, "I cannot live without God's grace. I only need you, Lord. If only you are with me, I lack nothing." Like David, "The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want." He seeks those who confess like this, is with them, and is a God who gives them abundant grace. One pastor confessed, "When I was planting the church, I truly prayed all night long. But now that the congregation has grown and the church has gotten a bit bigger, the time I spend kneeling and praying has decreased, the frequency has decreased, and I feel like the earnestness is gone." It's an honest confession. Isn't that perhaps true of our saints' prayers? In the past, when we were desperately poor, when we were at a loss about how to educate our children, we prayed to God. We prayed fervently. Now, we are somewhat well off. The earnestness in worship is diminishing. The thought, "I must receive grace today to live," has also greatly weakened. God is someone who turns His back on those who do not desperately seek His help. People are interested in those who have much, and those who are in high positions, but God is not interested in such people. From now on, as you live, when God gives you much, pray more. Amen. When you are healthy, pray more. When you rise higher, pray more, and conversely, when you are brought low, do not despair even if you are brought low. Do not despair even if opportunities for blessing decrease. And when you are lacking, I bless you to seek God more. Our God, altogether, God who seeks us out in our lack. God who seeks us out in our lack. Do not lament your shortcomings, but say, "God, We truly need your grace.
그렇게
Hold my
기도해서
hand
풍성한
and be
은혜를
with me.
누리는
I pray in the name of the
주의
Lord.
이름으로 축원합니다.